Welcome back to Little Moves, Big Careers. I'm Caroline Esserson, your host, and today I have with me a truly incredible young woman, Nash Vracas. Nash wears many hats, which we'll unpack in this conversation, but by day, she's program leader at Aston Martin Lagonda. Their official hashtag is hashtag intensity driven, and honestly, that could be more fitting for this chat. And if you've ever met Nash, you'll know she could have written that for herself. She doesn't do anything in half measures. Precision, discipline, and craftsmanship. Her obsession is excellence, the kind that you can only achieve when you're razor sharp and focused. But there aren't any hard edges with Nash. She's also curious, humble, and very compassionate. I first spotted Nash when she received the Autocar Great Women in Vehicle Development Award this summer. And I can remember thinking, wow, that's not someone who's waiting her turn. She radiates warmth and energy. But when you dig a little deeper, it's clear that it's not luck. It's mindset, discipline, and a few brave calls early in her career that have made all the difference to her. Now, a quick heads up before I go into it. The sound quality on this isn't my best work. I'm still learning the dark arts of podcast production. And let's just say the reverb had vibes all of its own. I've done my best to clean it up. And trust me, it is absolutely worth sticking with because Nash drops some pure gold at this interview. So with that said, let's dive straight in. This isn't a pep talk, it's a practical guide with a glint in its eye. Smart moves, slight chaos. Welcome to Little Moves, Big Careers. So welcome, Nash. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. So Nash, when you were standing there getting that award, and I know it's not your first award, is it?
No.
But when you were standing there getting that award, what kind of things were actually running through your head?
It was a really surreal moment because I wasn't aware of all of the nominees until actually on the day, and I was reading through the program, seeing all these amazing people. They were incredible. And when I was reading it, I was thinking, oh my goodness, why would somebody pick me out of this cohort? We are all really, really incredible people, incredible women. And when I went up, it was that moment of, oh, do you know what? This is finally a little bit of recognition for all of the work that I've done. And I'm not motivated by that at all. I just believe in doing the best possible job I can do. But it was that surreal moment and that just moment of having complete reflection on myself and being able to say, yeah, actually, you know what, I've made it and I'm one of the best in the industry. And that's not something a lot of people can say. So I was very proud of myself.
Oh, absolutely. You really deserve to be. I love what you said, Nash, about you don't do it for recognition. You believe in what motivates you is doing the best that you can possibly do. And that's wonderful because that's a real theme that has been running through, a surprising theme actually, has been running through with everybody that I've spoken to. Because you often hear, don't you, set your goals, look forward, make your 5-year plan. But actually, all the successful people I've been speaking to, they just want to do a great job.
Yeah, definitely.
Get really driven by that. Yeah. But when you do get the recognition, it's a signal to you, isn't it? It's a signal that all that hard work is paying off. And I think that it is really important just to celebrate those moments. And I remember seeing you on stage and actually being really moved by your response. It was a big opportunity. I think that whole awards event was fantastic because there were some great speakers there as well, weren't there?
Yeah, amazing, really incredible people. And I'm very honoured to have had the chance to listen to them and also connect with them professionally as well. So it was a very special event to be part of.
Definitely. And I think for me, one of the themes that came through, and it inspired me to do one of my earlier episodes, actually, because to hear these really experienced, fantastic women that have done brilliantly in their career. And they said, didn't they? I think you'll remember, they all said, but I still get imposter syndrome. And I was really surprised by that. I was surprised by their openness. And I think that what it made me realize is that when you continue to grow, You are going to always have that feeling because the feeling is actually just telling you that you're stretching.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think it's a very healthy feeling to have as well. And I think there's maybe a bit of negative connotations around imposter syndrome that it's a bad thing. But actually, what it is your body feeling uncomfortable in a situation you've not been in before. And that's normally a sign that you're pushing yourself out of your boundaries. And that's really what you have to do if you want to grow. If you always stay where you're comfortable, you're just not going to keep taking those steps to move on to the thing in the next big project and the next job. So I think having imposter syndrome is actually a very healthy thing to experience.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think it as you say, it shows that you're growing, but I think it keeps you grounded as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it sort of keeps you a bit humble so that you're enjoying what you're doing and being in the moment because you become very attuned to what you're doing.
Definitely.
So have you ever had any moments where you kind of put back because how old are you, Nash?
I am 34.
So, you have had a whirlwind of a career so far, haven't you? At 34. So do you ever kind of go, wow,
Yeah.
how did I get where I am so soon? What do you think are some of the qualities that you've got that have really helped you be the success that you are at the moment? I mean, you've still got so far to go, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you so much for saying that because it's really nice to hear that somebody sees my career in that way. Because, like I said, I've just done things because I've really enjoyed them and I want to do the best job that I can. So it is it is really humbling to hear that kind of feedback to say actually what you've done is really impressive. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Yeah, looking back, yes, I do have moments where I think, wow, how have I managed to fit all of that in? Because I have done so much. And I have almost had two different careers, which you will be aware of, because I have my professional career, my day-to-day career, and then I also run a charitable organization at the same time. And
And
I
you're the
think
chair of the charitable
I
organisation.
am, yes. Yeah. And I think between the two of them, I've managed to achieve a huge amount and at two completely different levels as well. So I am chair, I'm right up there in senior leadership, and I'm also working ranks in my day-to-day job. And I do have reflections on, yeah, I've done a lot. Those moments really come to me when I'm working with young individuals who are right at the beginning of their career. And they'll say little tidbits to me like, how do you know all of this? And those are the grounding moments where I'm like, yeah, actually, I do know all of this. And I know all of this because I've actually been doing it for quite a long time now. But I think I've managed to do it just because I've always taken the opportunities as they were in front of me and as they were presented to me. And I'm not very good at sitting still or being too comfortable for too long. But as soon as a project or something came up, I just went for it, gave it all of my energy, did it to the best of my capability. And then you get more opportunities off the back of that and your experience grows. And it's just the first one you have to do to get started. Once that first one happens, they just keep coming to that.
Yeah, that's the really first bold step, isn't it? Kind of going, just say yes, even if you're just not sure about it. Just say yes because you never quite know what'll happen. So you talked about having two different careers, really. So let's look at your professional career to start off with. So what's been your journey? Because it's not what you would call traditional.
No, not at
It's
all.
it's the respect. So where how did you make the decision to go into what you're doing? Tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
So my journey is absolutely not traditional at all. And I actually advise youngsters coming into the industry don't do what I did because it was probably a bit more difficult. But it suited me perfectly. And I've managed to do everything that I've done because of the choices I've made. So my background is actually in physics, which is a little bit unusual for somebody in engineering now. Not so much in the past, but definitely now moving from physics into that subject. I studied physics at school. Sorry, I've studied physics at university because I found it really easy when I was at school. It was just a subject that came very naturally to me. I found it very logical. And it just answered all of my curiosities as to why the world worked the way that it did, why bridges worked the way that they do, and I love one of the bridges, I think it's the Humber Bridge, is a suspension bridge and it has an airfoil planform to it. And when the air moves over it, it actually pushes the bridge down and makes it more stable. Which it's amazing, right? It's incredible. And for me, it's the physics and the science behind that that I find absolutely fascinating. So I went on when I studied that year, and whilst I was there, I absolutely fell in love with fluid dynamics, and my master's was in fluid dynamics. And off the back of that, I really wanted to pursue a career in that, which is how I ended up working towards aero. So I did apply for a lot of roles at the time. I didn't get anything, and my feedback always was, "You've done the wrong degree."
Okay.
So, which I thought was really interesting because I would actually argue even at that point, I had all the technical qualifications to go and do it, but it just didn't quite have the right tick boxes. So I then went on and I did a second master's at Cranfield in aerospace dynamics, specializing in aero. And that gave me the tick boxes, but it also gave me all the hand skills. So I learned CFD, wind tunnel testing, track testing whilst I was there. And that gave me a platform to then go and get a job in aerodynamics in the industry. And
So Cranfield is actually very well located, isn't it, geographically for that kind of industry? So
yeah,
did you make contacts as well while you were at Cranfield
yeah,
that helped you?
absolutely, I did. And I still talk to a lot of those contacts now in my career. And because it's quite a small university, the alumni is also quite small. So you can very quickly link up with other alumni who've come from there. And it's almost like our own little group of people. So yeah, it's a really great way of networking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. I was just like thinking about the geography of it.
Yeah, it's very useful. Um, so on the back of that, I ended up with a job at Jaguar Land Rover. That was my first job. And I absolutely loved it. But I would still say I very much specialized in aerodynamics at the time. That's really what I found very interesting. I loved doing all the wind tunnel testing specifically. I preferred that to the CFD side of things, just because I am a very hands-on person. And about 4 years in, I think it was, I had this opportunity in front of me to go and work in Olympic sports. And I thought, oh, do you know what? I can't turn this down.
So how did that come about?
So I was looking at maybe taking a bit of a career change.
Yeah.
I got to a point where I'd learned everything that I could learn from the role and I wanted to progress. And at the time, that opportunity wasn't available at JLR because they had a hiring freeze. It just wasn't enough. So I sort of just looking around, seeing what was there. And I sent an email to somebody and I said, actually, I really want to work in your department. And they replied back and said, it's really lovely that you want to do this. But unfortunately, we don't have any jobs. But we do have a job over here in Olympic sport, and we think you would be really well suited for it. And I was like, hey, please, can we have a conversation? I really want to know more about this. So I did. I went down, I spoke to them, and I agreed 100%. I thought I'd be such a good fit because it called together all the different things that I had in my arsenal. So I worked in winter sports, so I completely understood the physics behind cold environments. It was all fluids related, dynamics related, and I thought that just brings everything together. Let's go into that. And I ended up working in sport for about 3 years. And then again, I was at a moment where I was looking for another role and I just put my applications out everywhere. And the first one that came back just happened to be back in the car industry. So I moved back in. And that's when I started looking at a more strategic level. And I think some of that may have been the influence of what I had been doing on my other side of my career, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I wanted to have more of a say in terms of what's happening from a process perspective, from a management perspective. And I think some of that just comes with experience and age as well. So then I started taking on more senior leadership roles within the rated sector. And through lots of different steps, I've ended up in my current role, which is within program management at Aston.
Brilliant. So whistle stop tour, kind of a real zigzaggy, seizing the moment. It strikes me as Nash, just like seeing that opportunity could give you what you wanted.
Yeah, definitely.
but how fascinating as well.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun. And I think the advice that I always give to people is take every opportunity that is given to you. And I know sometimes it may not work out. And for me, there have been times where it hasn't quite worked out the way I wanted it to, but even those failures are learning points
Yeah.
and you can take the good from them and then apply them moving forward. But if I hadn't have taken that leap of faith to go and do something different, I wouldn't have the experience that I have now, and it wouldn't have opened up as many doors as it has. So I'm a big advocate, especially if you're very early on in your career, take them and have a go and see what happens.
And I think you said leap of faith, and I think that's absolutely right, because we often just kind of, even if we haven't set a plan, we kind of feel that this is our momentum. We've got a line of sight to where we want to go. So when something comes in that's left field, it does have to be a leap of faith, doesn't it? Because it kind of almost goes against everything that you've been thinking.
Yeah, definitely.
But that opportunity in itself, you would have been meeting, I bet you would have learnt from the elite athletes themselves, the coaches, the way that they respond to it, as well as the technicalities of doing the role. So it brought in a whole different level of skills that you maybe wouldn't have had access to if you'd been in sort of the car environment, the automotive environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of them in particular is really my attitude towards day to day.
Yeah.
Because in our industry, if you're having a bad day, it doesn't really matter because there are people around you and they'll be like, it's all right, we'll keep going, don't worry about it. But in sport, if you're having a bad day, the athletes absolutely cannot know about it
Yeah.
because any negative energy, and I really do mean it in terms of energy that they absorb, can have a massive impact on their performance. And so you have to be so tight-lipped, you have to keep it to yourself and you have to be really positive.
And is that something that's briefed into you, or is it just something that you instinctively?
Yeah. So when I properly interviewed, after I'd had the conversation, I did then interview for the role. And they did say to me, what do you like working with athletes? And I was like, well, I haven't. And then they said, well, how do you hand yourself day to day? And I explained to them and they said, okay, we think you're a good fit, but here's just a few hints and tips of what we need to do. So I wouldn't say I was given like a really strict brief, but it was very much kind of explained to me. And they did, I think as I started working with them, I realized exactly why they had said all of that to me to start with. And when athletes are in the zone, my goodness, they are in the zone. They are impenetrable and they don't want anything bothering them. Outside of it, completely different people, hilarious, lots of fun, really great to be around. But when they're in the zone, they are so hyper focused.
Yeah.
And learn of that approach and attitude in sport. And like you said, the way that approach working with different athletes to get the best out of them. That's something that I've then taken and applied back into my role in the automotive world. So I do tend to keep a little bit more of maybe my frustrations to myself because I've realized that actually even in that setting, letting them out isn't necessarily a healthy thing. And I think also if you want to go into leadership, that attitude is something that senior management do pick up on.
Yeah.
So if you do have a mode, like maybe the odd day, it's fine. But if you regularly act like that, seniors will pick up on that. Whereas if you have the ability to rise above, be positive, keep the team going, bring everybody together, that's a quality that will also help you take the next steps. If you want to move on, not everybody does, but if you want to, it's really that approach to your day to day.
Absolutely, and it shows your resilience, doesn't it? Because if you're able to internalize and deal with any level of frustration or problem that comes up, rather than letting it leak. We always talk about focus on the outcome that you want.
Exactly.
Is your behavior, is your approach in that moment serving you to get the outcome that you want? And if it's not, change it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about choice early on. It is all about choices that we make, and these micro things that we do all day long have an impact on how we're perceived by other people.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more.
So alongside your professional career, you've got your volunteering work that you do with Green Power. So I understand that you learnt about Green Power. Was it when you were at school or
Yeah,
college?
I did. So, Green Power, just for reference, is a STEM charity and it inspires children and young adults to go into STEM careers by getting them to design, build, and race electric race cars. And it's been operating for 26 years. So, it's a very, very long standing. and it works really well. So I actually went to Green Power for the first time when it was a year old. I was, I think, about 7 or 8, and my sister was racing. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I was like, I want to go and do this. And I was far too young at the time. So yeah, as soon as I was old enough, I got straight in there and I was like, I want to be part of it. I want to help build a race car. And I just loved it and completely thrived. And then when I finished,
Did your race car win?
no, but winning is everything. Gonna put it out there. It's not everything. No, it didn't. I learned a lot, a huge amount, but no, we weren't quite at that level. Which surprises people. When I say that to people now, they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, no, never won a gold medal, actually. I've handled it out of it. But yeah, so, and then when I left school, I was having, I don't know, a bit of a panic moment. I just wanted to finish school and I did not gel very well at all. And I didn't apply to university straight out of school. I just left and I started working. And a friend of mine who was a member of staff said to me, why don't you come down and volunteer at one of our events? Because we know that you love Green Power. We know you love our events and we're always looking for helping hands. So I thought, yeah, sure, why not? Let's go and do that. And initially, I just did that once a year. And then when I went to Cranfield, actually, because I was centrally located, it meant that I could volunteer a lot more. So I started doing like 10 to 15 events a year, and I just loved it. And it was so easy for me to get to because the events were an hour or 2 hours away by car. So it was really easy for me to do, and it gave me a purpose at weekends. And about 2 years into that, I was then approached by the then CEO, and he said to me, would you be interested on the board? Because we just love your energy, enthusiasm, and we think it would be really, really valuable. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, having no idea what that actually meant. I was like, yes, please. And I remember my first board meeting, and I was like, oh my God, what have I just signed up for? This is crazy. And the level of responsibility that was suddenly on my shoulders was not something that I was expecting at all. But it was an amazing learning opportunity for me. And I have a huge insight into how businesses operate that I would not have had if I hadn't have done that. And it's something that's allowed me to understand why decisions are made in my professional career. So when I hear internal and a few people question them in the background, I'm like, no, I know exactly why they're saying that. So from that side, it was a massive, massive learning op. And then about 4 years ago, we lost our chair. She sat down, and we were all in the conversation. And at this point, I'd never had any intention of taking that role on, honestly, because I didn't think that I was experienced enough to do it. And I was chatting to one of the previous changes, and he was like, why can't you see the obvious choices? And I was like, well, who is it? And he's like, you. I was like, oh, right, okay, interesting. And he said, have a think about it. Let me know when I talk to you. I think it was tomorrow or later on in the week. And I did. And I went away and I thought, actually, I would really like to do this because I really believe in the organization and I'd like to see it grow. And I took it on and they said, look, any questions or queries or anything you're unsure of, just pick up the phone and ask. There's plenty of us around you that will help. And I've been doing it ever since. And it again was another massive learning point, but it's one that I very much enjoyed. And I'm really proud of where the organization has gone under that leadership.
That is fantastic. And I think, what's going through my mind is that saying, isn't it? If you want a job done well, give it to a busy person. Nash, how do you find the time to do these things? Because it's not, being a chair of a charity is not just about turning up four times a year, chairing the meeting. It is a real hands-on, very, very involved role, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've managed to do all of it really because of discipline. And if you read any literature around how to be a great leader or how to succeed, they always say you need to have really strong habits. And behind that, they'll say motivation is great to get you started, but if you want to succeed, you need discipline. And I think that's something I learned at a very, very young age, was just getting up and getting on with it. And I was like this when I was at university. I had a part-time job when I was there, so I worked 20 hours a week. I did physics, which is not an easy degree. I also ran a sports team and I had a social life and I did it all. And I remember one of my friends that his name's Max. He was like, "You're like a machine," because I see you coming home at midnight from the job and you're up at 7 to go to the gym in the morning. And I was like, because I've got all this stuff I need to do, and I've got to fit it in the same 24 hours as everybody else. Now, just for the record, I didn't do that every night, but his point was you do fit a lot in. And I think I just learned to utilize all the parts of the day so that I could fit everything in. And even today, I've finished at lunchtime. So I've been in the office this morning. I had some paperwork before this call. Then I'm going to go to the gym and I've got another meeting at 8. So I've just filled up my day. But then I think on the flip side, it's about having that balance. So this weekend, I'm not doing too much. I've got a lot of downtime because you need the time to reset. You can't be all work and no rest. So I learned that discipline to get everything done. I try to keep it in 5 days of the week. And then at the weekends, I try really hard to keep that to myself, to allow myself to reset, to recoup. And then when I approach the week, I have the energy to keep going.
Yeah.
And I know it's a bit of a cliche as well. And people sort of say, "Oh, you find your job and you feel like you never work a day in life." I do and I don't agree with that saying, but but I kind of understand the sentiment is that if you really enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't necessarily feel like work.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy what I'm doing, and I do get a lot of gratification, self-satisfaction out of it, especially the charity work, because I know what a difference that's making to people. So I don't feel like I'm working 24/7. I feel like I'm just doing everything that I really enjoy.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? They do say find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. But in all jobs, there are things that aren't great that
Yeah.
you just have to get through. So I think it's really important that we're honest about this. And I think it is about discipline, it is about habits, and it is about choices. And it strikes me, Nash, that you're very clear about the things on which you want to spend your time. So I would imagine you don't get embroiled in stuff that you can't influence, for example. You just
No.
let that happen in the background, keep focused on where you're adding value all
Yeah,
the time.
absolutely. And I think there's so many things in this world that happen and go on and that people are passionate about. And that is amazing because you need those people. But you can't do everything. So, like you said, pick the ones that you want to do and you really enjoy. Give that 110% of your energy, and the rest of it, just let it go. Don't worry about it because somebody else is going to be as enthusiastic about those as you are about yours.
Yeah, I like that. It's somebody else's passion.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them be passionate about it and just don't get distracted. Absolutely. So, you mentioned earlier on that you've learned as much from failures as you have successes. If you look back across your career, has there been a real pivotal moment for you that has made you kind of fully appreciate where you're going, why you're doing what you're doing? Or is it all just been sort of a series of little things that have added together?
I think I think there has been moments where I've gone, yeah, that was really good. That was a really important one. And I think perhaps if you look at my CV or my profiles, you will see the the side of everything. You'll see successes and every single one of those projects I am really, really proud of. I think the bit that isn't shown, and in some ways I'm okay with this because I don't really want it shown, is those failures and those moments where you have the growth points. And I'm an engineer, so a technical failure kind of comes part and parcel with the job. It's how the whole process works. If something goes wrong, you go back, you find the failure point, you try again, and you iterate through until you get success.
Yeah.
So I think those ones, yes, they're great learning opportunities, and that's where your technical experience will come from. But I think those were less pivotal in my growth as a person. I think the ones that had more of an impact on me were when there were people involved.
Yes.
And for everything that I've done, one in particular is I've obviously hired people into roles, and I've hired people into very senior roles, and I haven't always got that right. And that happens. It happens in all businesses, and I'm sure we all sit there.
Really hard job
It's
recruiting.
really hard, and I'm sure we can all sit here and we've watched somebody go into a job and it's been an absolute disaster, and then they've moved on and somebody else is coming. But having that responsibility on my shoulders and getting it wrong was a big learning point. And I think it made me appreciate people who do that and appreciate how difficult that is. Because looking at how much that had affected people that I really care about and that I have known for a very long time, I felt like I'd let them down so much. And it's one of those where you look back and you think, oh, did I make the right decision? What criteria was I hiring that person against? And, hindsight's a wonderful thing. There's not much that you can do. And I'd say most of the time it probably was the right person at the time. And they did tick all the boxes and you weren't to know that it would kind of have that fallout. But I think it made me appreciate how to work with people when things have gone wrong and how to have the patience to let them vent to you and let them get their frustration to you and how to then help them fix it because you're going to have to fix it together. But when somebody's been hurt by a bad hire, that's a lot harder than you coming in and just hiring somebody else. They've got an emotional response to it and their confidence may be knocked or they may be very upset and frustrated, and bringing that back to where they were, which were amazing people. That was probably one of my hardest challenges that I've ever taken on. And I definitely say that I'm a different person because of it. And I'd like to think I'm a very different man because of it. And the way I approach problems now is very different.
I think this engineering approach that you've got that's kind of ingrained into you about find the point of failure, work on it, work what you have to do is such a good approach because when you do fail at something, it hurts. And particularly, as you say, when other people are involved, it just hurts. And it's easy then to get defensive or make excuses or try and sort of just play it down a little bit because it hurts. And I think if you can adopt that real engineering approach and think about why it happens, what could you do differently next time? And that sense of humility that you have, Nash, to really think about how do I build them up again
Yeah.
so that they are in a good state, because often it's situational, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
to everybody that's involved in that is such a strength. The fact that you care so much that you want to do that, because again, that's about your reputation. People see that care and compassion as a really important skill to have. Finding that balance is really tough sometimes.
Yeah, and I think in terms of a reputation, that is definitely what I would like to leave behind because I think the fame that you could get, I mean, I've never chased fame, but I think the fame that you could get by doing something amazing isn't as easy as it was in the past. So I'm never expecting my name to go down in the history books. But I would love it if you asked somebody who had worked with me or had known me what they thought about me. And if it was something along the lines of, great engineer, but a really lovely person and compassionate and took the time to work with people. I think for me that would be my vision of success because I've done everything that I've done because people have taken the time and care and attention to look after me and nurture me, and I'd love to pay that forward and do that for the next generation.
Absolutely. And just even just thinking about that, Nash, keeps you grounded and keeps you focused on what it is that you want to do. Because, in some respects, those are two very different outcomes that you're seeking, aren't they? Aren't they? They're very different. One is about process and one is completely about people. And the fact that you're talking about them, bringing them both together is really powerful. So I love that. So who's guided you in your career?
Oh, I've had so many people that have guided me. I think I've ended up the way that I've ended up probably because of my upbringing. So I owe a lot of things to my parents. I come from the aviation world. My father's a pilot, so it's very strong male dominated. And I have a sister, so there were two girls, and I have a brother as well. But my dad was very much of the approach that you can go and do whatever you want to do. And so I had that belief even as a child that, obviously you have to work for it. It's not going to be handed to you, but there were no barriers. But because I was surrounded by such strong men, I kind of absorbed that. So I ended up being a very strong person behind it. And they also taught me that you only live once. So go and enjoy your life, take the opportunities available to. And I think that was something that has also really guided me. And one of the things my mum in particular has always said to me is if you're going to do something, make sure you do it properly. So I don't cut corners. I'm known for being very tenacious. I really care about the details, especially when I'm working on processes, because I think sometimes people who work in strategy forget that process is going to be handed to a person so that they has to do it. So I really care about that detail to make sure things are explained in a way that somebody will understand. And that definitely comes from that. And then I think it's working with a lot of volunteers that gave up their time, who came into school. I know there was an individual called John Lewis who helped me through both my GCSE and my A-level projects. And then it was working with organizations like Young Engineers, which is sadly no longer around, but Young Engineers. And I remember Stu and Lil and Dave Lakin, and they were all so important to my development because they encouraged me and inspired me and gave me my confidence. And then
Sounds like you're like a sponge, Nash. You're so open to people helping and supporting you.
And then when I started at JLR, there was one individual in particular, and in some ways, I really hope he hears this because I have so much respect for him. But his name is Steve Windsor. He's known for the Windsor model in aerodynamics, and I used to call him Front of One with Steve because he just knew everything. But I came in curious like I am. I'm sure you picked this up. I was just asking questions left, right, and center. And he said to me one day, I really enjoy working with you because you just ask questions and promise me all the way through your career, you continue to ask the questions because people aren't going to come to you and necessarily tell you stuff, but it will be very rare for somebody who's as experienced as he is to not help you, but you have to go and ask for it. And I think that's also stuck with me as I've moved through my career is if I come across somebody who's experienced that I admire and I want to kind of absorb all of their knowledge and expertise, I've asked a question. So I think between those individuals, that's really how I ended up onto the path that I am.
That is such a sage piece of advice, and it's so simple, isn't it? Just, maintain that level of curiosity and just keep asking. And, I love that that he said that it's rare that somebody at that level will not want to help, not to ask, because that is a message that I keep on banging on about, because I think that in the work that I do, I see too many people that say, "Oh, I couldn't ask them. They're just so busy." And I just really want people to know that generally most people will want to help if they can.
Yeah, I think secretly they're never that busy. Would they always be happy to come and talk to you? So
It might get out what I said earlier about the way we fill our time, isn't it?
I mean, they might say to you like, "Oh, can we talk about this in about half an hour or something like that?" But I think really good leaders and good management, they will always find the time for you.
Yeah, brilliant. One of the things that struck me in the things that I've looked at about you, because I did a bit of digging beforehand, Nash, is that you've got this real interesting combination because you're an engineer, which immediately makes you think about makes me think you're factual, it's black and white, you're hugely analytical. But even in just talking to you, that sense of curiosity has really come out. You do your volunteering, and a lot of that is about people and inspiring the next generation, isn't it, as well? So that's very different. And then as one of your joys and your hobbies, it's photography, and you take the most beautiful photographs as well. And so how much I think that for me, when you look through a lens of a camera, I do think you see the world differently because
Yeah.
things come into a really sharp focus. And I'm just wondering if there's any sort of influence that you could perhaps pinpoint that helps you from your photography with the work that you're doing as well now.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're creative, you have a very visual mind. You have the ability to see things that others can't. So photography is a really good example. You could have 10 people in a row looking at the same scene, and the photographer will see it in a way that the other nine don't. And they'll take that picture and you'll think, how did she see that? It's such an unusual perspective. And I think with the way that I work, and I know sometimes people find it very strange, I have the ability to think laterally because I have a way of being able to see a whole system in my mind. I can see how everything links together in my mind. And that means that I can often pinpoint failures before they've happened because I can see how everything flows in my brain. And I'm like, oh, I'm not sure that's going to quite fit in. Which, if you don't have that visual capability or that creativity, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
So it's definitely had that influence. And I know the majority of my career has been in aerodynamics. And I know I've always been able to give feedback on changes, especially surface changes in the car industry, without necessarily running any CFD on it. Or CFD stands for computational fluid dynamics, so it's off computer software. But I don't have to do it, and the reason is because I'm very experienced in it. So some of these changes I've seen before, but I can visualize airflows around a vehicle, so I know on out surface it's likely to do this to the airflow. And I know through conversations with my peers that not everybody can do that. And I think it's one of the reasons that aerodynamics did come so easily to me, because when we were sat in a room, I could hear all the different conversations happening around me, all the different stakeholders, what they needed to do, and why they wanted to change services. And in my mind, I was like, okay, well, if it does this, the air will do that, and they're all linked together. And then I could always work with them to try and find a solution. And I would say that comes back to the fact that I have that very visual creativity to my personality.
Interesting. So that brings me to think about something else. You've got this innate ability that other people don't have, and you're young. How do people respond to you telling them that you can see the obvious, which to them is not obvious?
Do not. It's an interesting one because I I not so much now. I don't feel like I am young necessarily. Definitely at the beginning of my career, it was a bit of a struggle, and I know there are a few eyebrows raised when I was sort of 24, walking through and be like, "Oh, you should do this." And maybe, oh yes, when I come in and I work with somebody for the first time, there might be the same initial step back. But I think in every scenario, you have to build trust relationships with people. And that is an overnight job. And I think if you walk into a room on day one, assuming everybody's going to know you and respect you and do exactly what you say, then you really need to check in with yourself, because that's just not how things work. Humans will take a step back and be like, who is this person? But if you can calmly work through problems and work closely with people, then within a couple of weeks, they'll get used to you being around and it won't be such a shock. And within a couple of months, the kind of question as to whether or not you know what you're doing will just dissipate. Because if you can provide evidence, if you can demonstrate in that very short amount of time that you do know what you're talking about, then over time it will just fall away. And I think after maybe 3 months, maybe six, depending on how old you are. I think if you're younger, it might take a little bit longer. Um, you won't have any issues with your people. And I don't think in the team that I'm in now anybody questions how old I am or anything like that. I think they just see me walk into the room and most people are like, ah, Nash says it's probably true. So yeah.
It's about developing relationships first. You've got to draw people to you, haven't you? And so many people are in such a rush.
Yeah.
They just kind of expect that people would just listen to you. It's like,
I think as well, I could say the same about being a woman in engineering too. Because I get asked all the time, oh, what's it like? There's not very many of you. And I'm like, okay, well, there isn't, but you still have to develop those trust relationships. And I promise you, as soon as you have, nobody's going to look at you differently because you're a woman. They're just not. But it's the same if you walk in and somebody gives you that look. I think a lot of people jump to the conclusion that it's because you are a woman, when it's not. It's just because of you. They don't know who you are and they don't necessarily know why you're in the room, but just give people the time to get to know you and it just won't be a problem.
and it's actually no different whether you are a man or a woman. It is being respectful of other people and not expecting anything immediately. Isn't it? So, if your career was a car prototype, what would you be tweaking before it goes to market, Nash?
Oh wow. I think I would be a 6-cylinder currently only running on 4, because I think I've got the performance, I've got it all there. You can take me on the road, you can have a lot of fun. But like you said, I'm still quite early on in my career, and I think there's a lot more that I'm going to do and I'm going to achieve. And I think you could just unlock those other two cylinders, and then it would be something amazing. So yeah, sit down around. So cool.
I'm so looking forward to seeing that, because I think that the very fact that you are so open is going to set you in good stead for moving forward as well, isn't it? And there's just this real eagerness about what could be next.
Yeah.
What could it be, which is just brilliant.
Small shifts, sharp impact. These are quick-fire career moves, real things you can do before your next coffee refill.
So Nash, before we finish off, if you were to give 3 pieces of advice to people who are starting out in their career or maybe just struggling a little bit, what do you think those 3 nuggets would be that could really help them sharpen their opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first one I mentioned earlier is the one from my mum, and it's if you're going to do something, do it properly. Absolutely, do it properly. I often say to people, strive for excellence, not perfection. Don't sort of sell yourself short. Don't cut corners. Really, really do it properly, because that is what's picked up by leaders, and that's actually what's gonna help you get to the next step. So if you're gonna do something, do it properly. I think the next one is a phrase, and it's "Don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game," which is a quote by Babe Ruth, who is a American baseball player. And I'm going to be really honest where this came from. It's actually from a Cinderella story with Hilary Duff that I used to watch on repeat. Actually, I still watch it on repeat. I love that movie. But it's that, I mean, it's a Disney movie, right? So it's that moment where it's written on the side of the diner, her dad's diner. It's a Cinderella story. So obviously her dad passes away. She's got evil stepmom, and it's on the side of the diner, and the door slams, and some wallpaper rips off the wall, and the saying comes out. And it's the pivotal point of the movie where Cinderella's like all riled up, and she goes and, you know, wins everything. And it's all like very high school movie. Anyway, for me, we all love that, as you do. It's a teenage rom-com. I love them. But it really stuck with me. And when I've had moments of, oh my goodness, am I doing the right thing? In the back of my mind, I have that quote, and I'm like, yeah, do you know what? Let's go and do it. So, don't let a fear strike out keep you from betting game. And I think the last one is just have fun. Have fun. You know, you should be enjoying what you're doing. You should be enjoying life. And if you're really not, then maybe it's a time to do something different or make a change. But you should always have fun, and your days should be filled with laughter. And like you said earlier, there will be stressful moments in jobs. That's part and parcel of how it works. But you should also have the fun moments as well, and the laughs and the jokes in the office and things like that. So make sure you have fun whilst you do it.
I love that. Work has got this thing that you've got to be serious. And I just feel you're so much more resourceful and creative if you're having fun and you enjoy being with your colleagues as well. So yeah, absolutely love all 3 of those, Nash. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute delight talking to you. Loads to reflect on for our listeners, I reckon. And I think we should perhaps have you back in a year and see what you've done that year as well.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I'd love to. Thank you.
Ash, thank you so much.
Thank you.